Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Coach, and this is the ENLS series. Now, I wasn't given the God-given gift of, say, James Earl Jones or Sean Connery to narrate this in a really fascinating and engaging way. I'm just doing my best, so thanks for sticking with this. I appreciate it. And there was a number of things I talked about in terms of this paradigm shift. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts in this one. If you're new here, so you need to start back at the beginning. If you've already started shifting your habits, is there anything that you've noticed? Is there anything that's specific to you? Those are the things you're going to need to pay attention to. You need to kind of diagnose some of the things that you're struggling with or things that are preventing you from getting your goals. And overall, when we're going to go through this week is the macros to our benefit, but they're not really going to give us, let's say, the overall fat loss, but they're going to be really important when we build a meal. And we're going to go into macros in a little more detail today. How to cook, how to prepare meals, how to make sure that you can be successful and come up with, I call what's a baseline. And we'll talk about this in a few weeks. So rather than just say, hey, you can make these recipes and change your life. There's a lot of places that do that, and not that it's wrong. I'd rather you just learn how to do it on your own, how to take this formula, how to make it work for you. That's really my end goal in this, is to make sure that when you come out of this, you're like, oh, this is super easy. This is my preferences. This is what I like. This is what works for me. That's what's going to help you be successful in a lifestyle. One of the things that most people want, like I said in the past, is that they want the weight loss right away. And if you haven't lost weight yet, that's okay, because like I said, if we're going to make this a lifestyle, we have plenty of time. We hope anyway, right? Let's just start learning a little bit about some of the ways we can be strategic and use it to our advantage. One of the things I first got into when I started nutrition was the world of bodybuilding, and helped me shift and change my nutrition habits. And even though it kind of gave me, say, maybe a number of eating disorders, if you go look back many decades, like in how bodybuilding has transformed, and now let's leave PEDs out of that conversation because that's a whole nother area. There is something really specific though, that nutrition, as we've gotten better and learned more about it, it can be used to our advantage, especially when it comes to getting lean. That's something that we're going to go through, and how we do that is with a calorie deficit. But macros are what's going to help us make sure we feel full, satiated, and there's a number of things we can do with those. In order to succeed, we have to fail. There's a ton of quotes on that, and really that is absolutely true when it comes to this. And so for me, when it came to, say, building this pattern or building, say, this method, it was really important to kind of explore and just kind of go out and venture. I tried vegan meals. I tried a number of different ingredients and just threw things together, and sometimes they wouldn't work and sometimes they were fantastic, and it was something that I had never seen before, and actually I kind of preferred it. So that's what you need to do in this, is kind of have that curiosity element where you want to just kind of go see, hey, you know what, let's change things up a little bit, let's learn a little bit in the process and make sure that it's something I can integrate or, leave out. Most people out of the gate kind of want this roadmap of how to get there and how to make sure that, they're doing what's right and what's going to work for them. And that's really difficult because it just kind of depends. So what you're going to kind of do in this is make sure that try a different, say, flavors, ingredients, put something together that you would have never thought worked. That's okay. If it didn't pan out, that's how you get better. Now, this triad is actually kind of interesting because it applies in a number of different, say, business models. When I'm building a meal, I consider these three things because that's actually kind of what sets the tone. So when I'm building anything, say for my cookbook, number one, I try something, I document what I did, and then I kind of put it to the test. And if it works out, that's fantastic. If it didn't, then I get rid of it. Overall, how you rate a meal and how you build, say, a recipe, really important in the long term. And so I started kind of making an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm not asking you to do the complexity of what I do. What's most important is that you start grasping some of the common ingredients you like, some of the common staples, whether it's sweet or savory or whatnot. Once you kind of come to that conclusion, you have to figure out, okay, what are the ingredients I need in terms of my budget? Is it going to take me a lot of time? How complex is the recipe? All of these go into that formula of thing that I should keep or something I should get rid of. And if you could make, say, 12 to 20 of these recipes that are, say, simple or whatever is best in your world, you can make those at any point. While this formulation doesn't look any different than maybe some of the other systems out there, a lot of people promote high protein. We want to keep the calories a little bit lower. What's going to be a little bit different than this is that you're not following another cookbook. You're making your own cookbook. And that's what I firmly believe in, is that you're learning how to do this, being, let's say, versatile in however you come up with meals. And so your meal might not work for somebody else, but it's something that you really like. It takes a lot of time. It takes practice. You got to go to this grocery store. You got to buy different ingredients. You got to try variety. It's something that's gonna, let's say, elevate your game. And then once you learn how to do that, you can use these food trackers in order to, like, say, change macros and calories super quick. When you start making your own dishes, that's when you're going to be going to, I call, the next level. This is the important, I would call them the staples or the key factors. You're going to kind of have to understand these topics, let's say, in terms of how to track calories, how to use a food scale. Like, I'll show you a number of ways I do it in my world, but you might be a little bit different. In terms of shopping, you start reading labels and you've learned about caloric and nutrient density. You can start picking out ingredients that are going to combine together really well in terms of hitting whatever calories you need to hit in order to feel full, satiated, whatever your goal is. I can walk you through what I do. And in your world, it might be a little bit different in how, the stores or whatever. It's going to be most important that you kind of have this process, that you're doing these things. So here we are, like, what are some of the things we want to achieve in week 4? Number 1, we should be learning about a lot of these different things and how our lifestyles kind of fitting some of the things in that are most important. It's how you shop, cook, and prep. You should be kind of maybe getting that more consistent. Right now, what we're going to do is actually start looking and collecting data that's going to matter in terms of our overall physique. There's a ton of ways to do it, but for me, it's the scale, waist, and pictures, because I'm assuming that most people want to lose, say, abdominal fat. They want to look leaner. They want to have a beach body. They want to just look better or fit in clothes. So in order to do that, you need to set a goal, and there's a ton of ways you can set goals, but just make sure it's kind of something specific, something that kind of motivates you to move towards. That's really what's going to be important in goal setting. If you've been tracking your calories, start looking backwards. You can't look at weekly data until you've done it for a number of weeks, because what's most important is that we get maintenance calories. So once we know that information's close, and then we compare that with our body composition, after 2 weeks of seeing the same consistent calories and our body composition has changed 0, you found that. And if you can do that within a month, you are light years ahead of most people who are just cutting calories. Let's just go ahead and review these factors really fast. We're trying to find advantages that are going to help us in our deficit. Anything that's cheap, fast to make, and like maybe less detailed or less ingredients or processed to make it, I would consider an advantage. If it has all 3 of those, then that's great, but those are hard to find in some senses. Having just 2 of those is pretty good, and if you only have 1, maybe that's one that's on the cusp of being, a recipe I may or may not put in my book. If it has 0, I'm definitely not going to add it, just because it doesn't give me any advantage. And we remember the terms caloric density, nutrient density. It's something that is going to be important. Something that has, say, more calories and has less volume is going to be a high caloric density. Something that has, say, a lot of volume and low in calories is going to be low caloric density. It's bang for the buck, let's just say. If we pick something that's, say, low in nutrient density, it's just going to be more of a filler food. When we pick foods that are, say, higher in nutrient density, that means we're going to get a better quality of food, something that's good for our bodies, let's say. Because remember, there's some foods out there that, yes, they're healthy, they're high in nutrient density, but if they're also higher in calories, you just need to make sure that you're tracking it appropriately. And now protein is one of the most important macros in terms of fillingness and, say, recovery, and obviously it has a ton of other different benefits as well, but that's the 2 we focus on. And in order to hit, say, a higher protein goal, it's going to be really important that you find a number of options out there to help you do so. So when we start picking our proteins, we can pick ones that are, say, fresh and cook them up. It just takes a little longer, but there's nothing wrong with getting, say, prepackaged versions, or it isn't necessarily whole food, quote unquote, but it's already ready to go. But that comes into those factors, right? It's now convenient, so it saves you time, but you're generally going to pay for it. So there's a trade-off there. And protein is always going to be the one that's the most expensive of the macros, so it's something that I try and shop and get on sale because my budget is important. Carbohydrates, what we use to our advantage is that it gets us full or has, say, more volume to our meals. And there's a number of different sources we can use out there that are, say, fruits and vegetables in this category. Your micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals that are good for your body. This is also the category I kind of consider where we build flavors and textures and make our meals good. So I kind of consider spices, quote unquote, could fall into this category, or sauces. And there's a number of different fat sources we can get out there. Just make sure that you're weighing them as accurate, because remember, if fats are higher in calories, make sure you check out my Instagrams. I've already done a post on this, and you can read just to see my thoughts and how I treat them. I really like capturing data. It helps us see actual comparators in order to make any kind of determination on whether something helped or not. Start writing things down. Start, when you do a recipe, just keep track of it. You can use a journal. You can use little notes in your phone. You say that MyFitnessPal has a little tab called recipes, and you can add all of your ingredients in there. My cookbooks, very complex in some senses. It's specifically for me of something I can go to when I start a deficit. And I also have a spreadsheet for tracking, say, my body composition. This is something way more advanced than I'd expect anybody to do, but it's specific to me. You don't ever need to do something like this, but I mainly have it so I can teach it. Now for this week's special guest, it was actually a lot of divine intervention just because I didn't have someone lined up. I was kind of nervous that I was going to have to do another one myself. Fortunately, at the kind of the 0 hour or right before I had to finish this video and have enough time in order to put it out, I came across a good friend who said he'd be more than happy to sit down and talk about this stuff. And I was super happy with the conversation we had because it ties a lot of the stuff we talked about this week and stuff we're going to talk about next week, and just kind of reinforces that and how it's been really beneficial for him. It was really a blessing in disguise, and I hope that it gives you some inspiration and things that could be beneficial for your journey.
Putting on weight, decided it was time to drop some of that weight, and coach was very helpful in that process.
Tell me about your journey this year and kind of some of the results you've gotten.
So I started the year around probably like 260, 270 pounds, and some of the things that made me successful was watching my calorie intake, cooking my own meals. Coach helped me prepare originally, and just not an overnight process. I don't do anything crazy, and I've dropped about 70 pounds, staying consistent with it and enjoying it. I mean, liking what you're eating. I eat burritos every day. They're delicious.
If you had to go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Probably just moderation. Just watch what you're doing and be consistent. Paying attention to what you're doing, making little changes, and then over time, those little changes add up to bigger changes. I mean, that's really all it is. Not try to get something overnight. It just doesn't happen that way. Probably 165 in college, and then shot up to 270 through all my years of sitting at a desk, but that didn't happen overnight. For sure, that happened over years and years. So once you start making little changes, it's just staying on that and enjoying it. Because whenever I get to where I want to be, the goal is not to just say, oh, I got there. It's to say, well, I got here and I like what I'm doing. So I'm not gonna rebound and go back to 270, right? That's the bigger point, is that you're not like miserable. And I'm not, like, I enjoy what I do every day, so, and what I get to eat and all the things like that. So that's probably the biggest thing. And it might work for some people, but anything that, you know, doesn't make you feel good or whatever, and it's just a quick change, is not sustainable long-term.
Words of the wise, and I gotta absolutely agree with this. Hey, thanks for being on, buddy. Really appreciate it. Hope that helps you out a little bit of inspiration to maybe get started if it's something you're looking to do, or make some change if it's something that you've been seeking. So it's really neat to hear, you know, when someone's made change. I can't be more proud of this guy for doing, let's say, putting the work in, and kind of, you really have to see it and you really have to want it. And I could tell there was a point where I saw it in his eyes and he just kept going forward. And like I said, super happy for him. Thanks for being on today, Sean. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll see you in the next episode. And until then, take care. Peace.